On the morning of August 15th, 1975, 8-year-old Gretchen Harrington got ready for Bible camp. She had done this before. Every summer morning, she walked down Lawrence Road in Broomall, Pennsylvania, a 10-minute walk from her front door to Trinity Church Chapel, where the program was held. She usually walked with her sisters. They went together, the way sisters do, the way parents feel better knowing they went together. But on this particular morning, Gretchen walked alone. Her youngest sister had just come home from the hospital, a new baby in the family. Things were different that day. Gretchen walked by herself for the first time. Her father, Harold, himself a pastor at the nearby Reformed Presbyterian Church, watched her from the door as she set off up Lawrence Road. He watched her walk. He watched until she was out of sight, and then he went inside. At the end of that 10-minute walk, waiting somewhere along Lawrence Road, was a man Gretchen knew. A man she trusted completely, the way children trust adults they have known their whole lives. A man who was a pastor, her father's colleague, one of her best friend's fathers. When he offered her a ride, she got in the car. Of course she got in the car. By 11:23 that morning, Gretchen's father had called police. 2 months later, on October 14th, a jogger discovered her skeletal remains in a wooded area of Ridley Creek State Park. She was 2.5 miles from home. Her clothing was folded in a neat pile beside her. Her underwear had been hung from a tree branch, hung there deliberately, as if to mark the place. She was 8 years old. The man who did this did not flee. He did not hide. He stayed right where he was, in the community, in his church, among the family and friends of the little girl he had just killed. He helped search for her. He called police on the morning she disappeared. And when Gretchen Harrington's body was finally brought home, David Zandstra stood at her funeral and presided over her burial. He would go on. Welcome to Buried Verdict. Some verdicts were buried before they could be delivered, some were delivered and then taken away. Tonight, both things happen. And at the center of it all is an 8-year-old girl named Gretchen, who deserved so much better from every single Broomall, Pennsylvania, Marple Township, Delaware County, August 1975. I want you to picture this place exactly as it was. Broomall in 1975 was the kind of American suburb that existed in thousands of variations across the country in that era, safe, quiet, rooted in faith and community, the kind of place where families left their front doors open and children walked to school by themselves and nobody thought twice about it. The houses were neat, the lawns were kept. The churches were full on Sundays, and the pastors were not just religious leaders, they were community pillars, people you called when something went wrong, people who sat at your kitchen table, people whose children were your children's friends. Delaware County, just outside Philadelphia, stretching from the city's western suburbs toward the Chester County border, was a place of deep community connection. People stayed. Families had roots going back generations. The kind of place where if you got lost, you could knock on any door and they would know your parents. In the summer of 1975, Gretchen Harrington's family was at the very center of that community. Her father, Harold Harrington, was the pastor at the Reformed Presbyterian Church, a man of faith leading a congregation of people who trusted him. Her mother was raising 4 daughters. The family was embedded in the fabric of Broomall in the most complete way a family can be. The summer Bible camp program that Gretchen attended that August was run between 2 churches, Trinity Church Chapel Christian Reformed Church on Lawrence Road, and the Reformed Presbyterian Church, where her father served. The children moved between both. It was an ordinary arrangement for an ordinary summer program. The man who ran the opening exercises at Trinity, and who was responsible for transporting children between the 2 churches, was a pastor named David Zandstra. Zandstra had been ordained in New Jersey in the 1960s. By the early 1970s, he was at Trinity in Broomall, leading youth summer workshops for teen girls, running Bible programs, building exactly the kind of presence in the community that made parents trust him. He was a family friend of the Harringtons. His daughter and Gretchen were close friends. He was by every outward appearance exactly what a community like Broomall wanted in a pastor. Faithful, present, trusted. Marple Township Police Chief Brandon Greff would describe what Broomall was like before August 15, 1975, and what it became after. He said, pre-August 1975, it was any town, USA. Post that day, it changed everything for the kids, for the parents, for the families, for everybody, because nobody could do anything anymore in the innocence that they used to do before this happened, before and after. That is what the murder of a child does to a community. It divides time. It ends one era and begins another, and nobody who was there ever fully lives in the before again. On August 15th, 1975, Broomall's before ended. Gretchen Harrington, 8 years old. I want to hold on that number for a moment. 8 years old is second grade. 8 years old is losing your front teeth and not minding. 8 years old is the summer feeling like it lasts forever, is running through sprinklers, is Bible camp on a warm August morning, is a 10-minute walk you've done before and will do again. 8 years old is an age at which children understand almost nothing about danger, because they have been raised, correctly, lovingly, appropriately, to trust the adults around them, to trust the pastor who knows their father, to trust the man whose daughter is their best friend. Her family described Gretchen in a statement released after her killer's arrest in 2023, 48 years after her death. And I want to read what they said, because it is the most important thing in this entire story. They said, "If you met Gretchen, you were instantly her friend. She exuded kindness to all and was sweet and gentle. Even now, when people share their memories of her, the first thing they talk about is how amazing she was and still is. At just 8 years old, she had a lifelong impact on those around her." Reading that again. At just 8 years old, she had a lifelong impact on those around her. That sentence tells you everything you need to know about who Gretchen Harrington was. Not what happened to her. Not the case file, not the details investigators would spend 48 years piecing together. Who she was, to the people who knew her, a child so warm, so open, so genuinely kind, that 5 decades later, the first thing people say about her is not that she was murdered, but that she was amazing. She had 3 sisters. She was the daughter of a man of faith, a pastor, someone who had built his life around service and community. She grew up in a home where faith was not a Sunday obligation, but the actual architecture of daily life. She was heading to Bible camp that morning with that background, with that safety, with the complete confidence of a child who has been taught that the world, her Broomall, her community, is a place where the people around her will look after her. She was not wrong to believe that. Children should be able to believe that. The person who made her wrong was David Zandstra. August 15th, 1975, a Friday, late summer in Delaware County. The Harrington household that morning had the particular controlled chaos of a family with a new baby. Gretchen's youngest sister had just come home from the hospital. Things were different. The usual morning routine, the walk to Bible camp with her sisters, was adjusted. Gretchen would go alone today, just this once. She was 8 years old and it was a 10-minute walk and she had done it before. The church was just up the road. At approximately 9:30 in the morning, Gretchen Harrington left her home at 27 Lawrence Road in Broomall. Her father Harold watched her from the doorway. He watched as she walked up Lawrence Road, heading toward Trinity Church Chapel at 140 Lawrence Road. He watched until she was out of sight, just out of sight. What happened in the minutes between Harold Harrington watching his daughter walk up the street and never seeing her alive again was this. David Zandstra was on Lawrence Road that morning, driving his green Rambler station wagon. He saw Gretchen. He knew exactly who she was. He had known her whole life. He was her father's colleague. His daughter was her best friend. When he slowed down and offered her a ride, there would have been nothing in Gretchen's 8-year-old understanding of the world that told her not to get in the car. She got in the car. He did not drive her to Bible camp. He drove her to a wooded area nearby. He parked the car. He told her to take off her clothes. Gretchen Harrington said no. She said she wanted to go home. What happened next, investigators would learn 48 years later from the man himself. He struck her in the head with his fist. She began to bleed. He checked for a pulse. He believed she was dead. He covered her small body with sticks, and then he left. He drove back to his church. He walked through the door. And according to prosecutors, when Gretchen's father, Harold, called him later that morning, worried, then frantic, looking for his daughter, David Zandstra was the one who called the police. The man who had taken her from that street, who had driven her into the woods, who had covered her body and walked away, he picked up the phone and reported her missing. By 11:23 that morning, police were involved. The search for Gretchen Harrington had begun, and David Zandstra joined it. What followed in the days after August 15th was the particular anguish of a community that could not stop moving, because stopping meant accepting something unbearable. Over 200 people searched the wooded areas around Broomall. Authorities distributed more than 2,000 leaflets. A 24-hour hotline was established and took hundreds of calls. Neighbors, church members, families who knew the Harringtons, everyone came, everyone searched. David Zandstra was among the searchers. Think about what that means. He walked through those woods alongside the people who loved Gretchen. He might have passed within yards of where he had left her. He might have heard her father's name called with increasing desperation. He carried all of that and kept walking, kept searching, kept performing the role of the worried pastor, the concerned family friend, the man of God who cared about what had happened to that little girl. Pennsylvania State Police opened the investigation with full urgency. Witnesses came forward with a key detail. Someone had seen Gretchen on Lawrence Road that morning, speaking with the driver of a vehicle, described as either a two-tone Cadillac or a green station wagon. David Zandstra was known to drive a green station wagon. In October 1975, investigators interviewed Zandstra. He denied seeing Gretchen on the day she disappeared. He looked investigators in the eye and denied it. They could not disprove it, not in 1975. On October 14, 1975, 2 months after Gretchen disappeared, a jogger was running through Ridley Creek State Park in Edgemont Township. The park was about 2.5 miles from Gretchen's home on Lawrence Road. The jogger found her skeletal remains. In a wooded area of the park, in a spot that had been deliberately chosen for its concealment. But here is the detail that investigators noted and that stayed with them for decades. Her clothing was not scattered, it was not discarded in the way clothing is discarded in panic or violence. It was folded, placed in a neat pile beside her. And her underwear had been hung from a tree branch, deliberately, as if to mark the spot. An Inquirer report at the time described it as hanging like a flag, as if to call attention to the place. The autopsy confirmed cranial cerebral injuries, blunt force trauma to the skull. She had been beaten with enough force to kill her. She was 8 years old. Shortly after Gretchen was found, David Zandstra stood at her funeral and presided over her burial. He performed the ceremony. He offered comfort to Harold and his wife, to the sisters, to the congregation that had gathered to say goodbye to a little girl who had walked up their street one morning and never come home. He said whatever words a pastor says at the funeral of a child, and then the service ended and he went home. And in the late 1970s, David Zandstra left Broomall. He moved to Texas, then to California, then eventually to Georgia. He continued his ministry. He served congregations. He retired in 2005 and settled with his wife in Marietta, Georgia, where he lived quietly among neighbors who waved to him on his morning walks. The case in Delaware County went cold. For 48 years, the investigation into Gretchen Harrington's murder never fully closed. The case that Marple Township Police Chief Graff described as having shattered the community's innocence. It remained open. Detectives came and went. Evidence was preserved. The file passed through hands and generations. In 2017, investigators began reinvestigating actively, though the specific trigger for that renewed focus was not publicly disclosed. Gretchen's mother was still alive. Her 3 sisters were still alive. They had spent 5 decades in the after, in the half of their lives that was permanently shaped by what happened on a Friday morning in August 1975. And somewhere in the possession of a woman who had been a little girl in Broomall in the summer of 1975 was a diary. This woman, whose name has never been publicly disclosed, had been one of Zandstra's daughter's closest friends. She had slept over at the Zandstra house regularly, the way close childhood friends do. And on one of those sleepovers, about a week before Gretchen disappeared, something happened that the girl wrote down. She wrote in her diary that Zandstra had molested her while she slept, that she had woken up to find him groping her, that she had told his daughter what had happened, and that his daughter had replied that her father does that sometimes. She also wrote something else in that diary in 1975, something that she carried for the next 48 years, something that she wrote in a child's handwriting, in a child's diary, because she was a child processing something her mind was trying to make sense of. She wrote, "I think he might be the one who kidnapped Gretchen. I think it was Mr. Z." A child in 1975 wrote those words, "I think it was Mr. Z." And those words sat in a private diary for 48 years. While David Zandstra pastored churches in Texas and California and Georgia, while Gretchen's family lived in the after, investigators preserved the evidence and kept the file open and waited for something to change. In January 2023, that woman went to the police. She was now an adult in her 50s. She had carried this for decades. The memory of the sleepover, her suspicion about Gretchen, the diary entry she had written as a frightened child. And in January 2023, she sat down with investigators and told them everything. She brought the diary. It was everything investigators needed to point them directly at a specific man in Marietta, Georgia. A retired pastor, 83 years old, who had walked away from Broomall more than 4 decades earlier and never looked back. On July 17, 2023, Pennsylvania State Police Corporal Andrew Martin and Trooper Eugene Trey flew to Georgia. David Zandstra was 83 years old when Corporal Martin and Trooper Trey knocked on his door in Marietta. His neighbors described him as friendly and pleasant, the kind of man you wave to, the kind of man who walks around the neighborhood with his cane and says hello. One neighbor said she'd had no idea. Another said he'd always seemed like very nice people. He was a retired pastor, a grandfather, an old man in Georgia who had lived a long, quiet life since leaving Pennsylvania in the late 1970s. He sat down with the investigators, and he denied everything. He had been doing this for 48 years, denying it, sitting across from people who asked him about that morning and looking them in the eye and saying no. He had done it in 1975. He had done it to everyone who had ever asked. He had done it to himself, perhaps, in whatever way people who carry terrible things manage to carry them. He denied it. Then the investigators told him about the diary, about the sleepover, about what the little girl had written in 1975, about the woman who had come forward, who had brought the diary, who had written, I think it was Mr. Z in a child's handwriting 48 years ago. Zandstra went quiet, and then he started talking. He admitted to seeing Gretchen walking up Lawrence Road on the morning of August 15, 1975. He admitted to offering her a ride in his green Rambler station wagon. He admitted to driving her to a wooded area. He admitted to telling her to take off her clothes. He admitted to striking her in the head with his fist when she refused. He admitted to checking for a pulse, to believing she was dead, to covering her body and leaving. He told the investigators everything. Trooper Eugene Trey described what happened in that room after the confession in words that I keep returning to. He said, he was relieved. I would say it was like a weight was lifted off his shoulders. It was extraordinary to see. It was just that he was a different person. Even when he was told that he was going to be placed under arrest that day, he was okay with it. He was relieved. 48 years of carrying August 15th, 1975. 48 years of being the man who stood at Gretchen's funeral and offered her family comfort. 48 years of Sunday sermons and congregational care and the performance of a life in ministry. And when it was finally over, when the weight of it was finally being taken from him, he was relieved. David Zandstra was taken into custody in Marietta, Georgia, and he was held at Cobb County Jail without bail. He was charged with criminal homicide, first-degree murder, second-degree murder, third-degree murder, kidnapping of a minor, and possession of an instrument of crime. Delaware County District Attorney Jack Stolzheimer held a press conference. He said what many people were thinking. He said, he is every parent's worst nightmare. This is a man who is a remorseless child predator who acted as if he was a friend, a neighbor, and a man of God. He killed this poor little girl he knew and who trusted him. And then he acted as if he was a family friend, not only during her burial and the period after that, but for years. And then the DA said something that I want you to hold on to for the next few minutes. He said it with absolute confidence. He said, we're going to convict him. He's going to die in jail. And then he's going to have to find out what the God he professes to believe in holds for those who are this evil to our children. He was going to die in jail. He was wrong. Zandstra fought extradition from Georgia initially, a process that took months. But he eventually arrived in Pennsylvania to face the charges. At 84 years old, he stood before a Delaware County jury accused of taking the life of an 8-year-old girl nearly 50 years earlier. The prosecution's case rested heavily on the confession, on what Zandstra had told Corporal Martin and Trooper Trey in that room in Marietta, Georgia, on July 17, 2023. The specific admissions, the details. The account of driving Gretchen to the woods, of telling her to disrobe, of striking her with his fist. The defense had one central argument. The confession had been coerced. I want to be clear about what coercion means in a legal context. It does not mean violence. It does not mean physical force. It means that the defense argued that the circumstances of the interrogation, the pressure applied, the information presented, the way investigators confronted an 83-year-old man with allegations, had produced a statement that did not reliably reflect the truth. That what Zandstra said in that Georgia interview room was not a genuine confession, but a response to pressure from which he could not see any other escape. The jury deliberated. After 3 hours, they returned, not guilty on all counts. David Zandstra, 84 years old, the man who confessed to driving an 8-year-old girl into the woods and striking her in the head with his fist, walked out of a Delaware County courtroom a free man. The Harrington family had been waiting since 1975. Had been waiting through the cold case years, through the renewed investigation, through the arrest, through the extradition fight, through the trial. They had watched D.A. Stolzheimer stand at a microphone and promise that Zandstra would die in jail. They had read their own statement into the record, the one about Gretchen being sweet and gentle, about how at just 8 years old she had a lifelong impact on everyone around her. And then a jury of 12 people deliberated for 3 hours and came back with 2 words. I have thought a long time about how to end this episode, about what the right thing is to say after a verdict like the one delivered in January 2025. I do not have a clean answer. I am not sure one exists. What I know is this. On August 15, 1975, Gretchen Harrington walked up Lawrence Road alone for the first time in her life. Her father watched her from the doorway until she was out of sight. And in the gap between his view and her destination, a gap of perhaps 50 yards, a few seconds, a man who knew her, who was trusted by her family, who carried the title of pastor and all the authority that title carried in a community like Broomall, that man took her. She said no. She said she wanted to go home. She was 8 years old. She exuded kindness. She was sweet and gentle. If you met her, you were instantly her friend. She had a lifelong impact on everyone around her at just 8 years old. David Zandstra presided at her funeral. He pastored churches in Texas, in California, in Georgia. He retired. He walked around his neighborhood in Marietta with his cane. He was okay with being arrested when that day finally came. In January 2025, a jury decided the confession that produced that relief, that weight finally lifted after 48 years, was not reliable enough to convict him. He walked free. I am not here to tell you what to think about that verdict. Juries deliberate for reasons that exist inside a courtroom, with evidence presented in specific ways under specific rules, and their conclusions belong to the process of law in a way that I cannot and should not override. What I can tell you is what the Harrington family knows and has always known. On August 15, 1975, their daughter and sister walked up Lawrence Road and did not come home. Her father watched her until she was out of sight. She was never out of their hearts. Gretchen Harrington, 8 years old, Broomall, Pennsylvania, August 15, 1975. If this story stayed with you, share it for Gretchen, for her mother and her sisters who have been waiting since 1975. Leave a candle in the comments for her. And if you have any information about David Zandstra's activities in Texas, California, or Georgia, the investigation into whether there were other victims continues. Contact the Delaware County District Attorney's Office. Subscribe to Buried Verdict. I will see you in the next one.